Perfect day with the perfect guest. U.S. Representative, the great Burgess Owens from Utah, nice enough to join us 10 years in the NFL, one of the great players at the U. All right, you and I were talking off air. Affirmative action gone. Give me your thoughts. You run with it.
Dan, first of all, I'm so excited. I was sitting in the car driving when it happened. I actually started clapping. If I could have, I would have stood up with a standing ovation. You know, it's time for us to get past these racists, and that's what this comes down to. I have to understand what affirmative action really means. And I grew up in the '60s, so I know what it is when there's a message out there that blacks are not intelligent enough. They cannot do certain things. When I left high school to go to the University of Miami, I went there to major in marine biology, and there was a white guy, a Democrat, a liberal. He knew really nothing about me other than my color, but he got through the grapevine that I couldn't do it. It was only because of the color of my skin. Affirmative action comes down to one simple thing. You don't see it in sports. Keep this in mind. You don't see affirmative action in the NFL or the NBA or any other sports. They go on merit in those areas. Affirmative action only happens when you deal with people's intelligence. And what the Democrats and liberals have done for decades have convinced black people that we cannot compete with them intellectually, that we have to have a leg up. So what they do is they go into our school system, make sure our kids cannot think, cannot read, not write, cannot go to schools where they can really learn how to compete. They didn't give them affirmative action. They go into these colleges where they cannot compete because they're not ready for it. They have not been trained to compete with the very best because they've come in from a background where they cannot get it done. They then fail. Then they have this big college debt, and they go on again complaining and thinking that their life is not right and this country is not a good country for them. So this is the best thing that could happen in my lifetime, to be honest with you, for my race. By the way, that's for all races. That's for whites and blacks, for Hispanics, for Asians, for everybody, because this country is about meritocracy, and it's time for us to get back to bottom line, go to work, be nice, be respectful, look for the long term, overcome obstacles. If you do that, no matter what your skin color is, you will win in this country.
I got to ask you, I was watching, and so I got to see both sides. And I was watching yesterday, and there were a couple commentators that said, look, we get it. The bar needs to be raised. They were both African-American commentators. But it, for them, came down to a distrust of who was hiring, who were in the missions department. It was more of a distrust of I don't want to say the boss, but the person in charge than it was about anything else. You agree? You disagree? How do you view that?
Well, I'll say this. We're now in 2023. We have a country that is so multicolored, multiracial in terms of what we do. Look around and see how many families now are multiracial. I'm a good example of that. Back when I was a kid, interracial marriage was not even happening. We've got to the point now where our country can recognize and look at each other and say, you know, that guy can be a benefit to my organization. That gal can be a benefit to my organization. When we start dealing with this process of checking the box of race, we're becoming racist, period. So, you know, at the end of the day, I don't care. I look at it very simply. If we have a level playing field, we look at the standards. We know that that's the standard for me to work hard to make sure I can get there. Well, I'm not expecting, I'm not feeling as a black man or that I should be entitled for something, which is the saddest thing to happen is when Americans wake up every day and think because of your skin color, you deserve a particular position, or because of your skin color, you deserve to get a lower standards to be allowed to come into certain things. That's not the American way. And we're finally getting away from that. And I tell you, the ones that hate this process are the ones that promote racism every place you go. And that's the hard left, the liberal elitists who kind of look from above and they stub their nose up and think that we just can't compete with them because of our skin color.
Why do you think? I think it's because of the old divide and conquer. Like, I think that the far left, you call elite liberals, have to keep people divided and have to keep people wanting their assistance. You got to need us. You have to need us is the way I look at this, because, again, I try to look at things both, and I can't understand their thinking other than you got to have us. You need us.
Well, Dan, first of all, if you have to understand this is an ideology, and an ideology that hates God, that hates the family unit, that hates education for everyone, that hates the business concept of free market, you're not going to be logical with how to deal with these folks. It's not because it's not a logical thing. For them, it's a religion. They want to divide us. How can you best divide people than looking at each other from outside in versus inside out? It is tribalism in its worst. And at the end of the day, we now have gotten to the next phase, by the way, of affirmative action, because we're talking about now having men competing with women. Eventually, you're going to find that if you allow a lot of these people to do this stuff, they'll take it everywhere they can because it's all about divisiveness and division. So all we want as Americans very simply want to be fair. Give us a level playing field. Let us know what the standards are. And I'm going to do my very best. I'll say 24/7 if I have to do that to train myself, prepare myself so I can go and compete against that next person. That's how we develop character. That's how we develop grit. Even when we work hard and don't quite get to the goal we want to, we're learning all about life skills. So this is what the left does not want. Everything they do. Look at Chicago. Look at the state of California. Look at New York. Look these places where it's falling apart. We're finding Gotham cities. It's these places is run by the same people that now want to say that we need to judge each other from outside in, not inside out. So no, we're winning. I'm excited about this. A great day in America, my friends. A great day that we can finally say, give me a fair shot, and based on my merit, based on my attitude, based on my ability to overcome, hire me. Let me do my thing, and that's how we should be looking at all Americans at this point.
Let me, and I don't expect you to have the exact answer to this, but what would you say by percentage, your African-American friends, colleagues, family, by percentage, do they agree with you?
I think more are. You have to understand, this has been a 50-year training indoctrination process. I'll say this, my parents would they would be so upset to think that we are a race now that looks at ourselves as victims. And that's what it's come down to. And I'll tell you the worst of the crew of this whole process is not white supremacists, by the way. It's Black elitists who have made profits, that may become very wealthy. All they have to do is say the right things because they believe in affirmative action, they understand it, they buy into it, and they're the ones that these white liberals hire to go out and do their thing. Look at The View. These folks, I don't see any talent in what these people do, other than they make sure that those who hire them, they are the voice for them. So yeah, they believe in affirmative action. That's how they got their jobs. They will not have a job if they were based on merit, based on people across the process, even based on merit of thought, of conservatives that compete against what they do. So those who are bought into this, who sell this, are the Black elitists. Those who have made profits of my race for decades, and it's time for them to move aside because we have folks now that are going to come out and be the owners of these businesses, and we will hire the best, not those who just want to pull this line that goes out at this point throughout the country.
5 years from now, we all know that there's going to be pressure, right? There are all these different organizations that grade things, that, what is it, DEI, and the businesses have to have a certain score. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, I don't even know the numbers on most of these things, but let's just say the numbers of white or Hispanic outnumber African American, or however it goes. How much pressure do you think, because we all know the far left media is far left and they're dying for things like this. They live for things like this, these numbers. How much pressure do you think businesses, colleges, different entities are going to be under 3-5 years from now?
Well, let me tell you, first of all, for those who say that because of affirmative action, women will no longer be brought into colleges, that Blacks will no longer be brought into college. Think about what we're talking about. We're saying these are people saying, you're not smart enough. If it's not for us, if not for we will lower the standards, you cannot succeed. That is the most racist thing possible. And I'll say this also. I'm the chair of the Education and Workforce Subcommittee, and we're going to be looking at this. This is now law. This is codified. This is something that across the country, we find colleges that are breaking the law constitutionally. We're going to find a way in our legislation to make sure they pay a price for that. So they're getting a little cute. Of course they will, because that's the way the left works. These are people who never, ever give up. They want to divide. They are tenacious, and they will find a way to nuance their way through the process. But just know this, we have a Congress now that understands what they're doing. We have a Congress that the priority for us is education. We'll make sure every child is educated. By the way, if you want to have children ready to compete and get to these high colleges, let's start off in high school. Let's start from PK. Let's stop this process of dumbing down our kids so they cannot compete when it comes down to going to college or any other profession they want to get done. We're going to make sure, number one, that we give Americans across the country a fair break. An education should be a civil rights. And we're going to look at these colleges like Harvard. Go ahead, keep it up. You keep up breaking the rules, the Constitution, and we will find a way for you to pay a price for that. Because we're not putting up for this lawful process that the left does and get away with. Those days are done.
Yeah, Harvard's already said they're going to try to circumvent it.
That's because they're cocky leftist elitists, and they think they can get away with it. That's not happening anymore.